I haven't done this in a while.
Yeah, welcome.
I'm both sober and not hungover, so there's a win.
That's good.
Yay.
We'll count those.
How many times is Troy going to vomit on this episode?
Jesus.
Purely
Iconic.
conversationally.
Iconic. He changed the game.
Did I?
Yeah.
What game did I change?
Just get the game of podcasting. You redefined it.
No, there's been all sorts of things where people have thrown up. Like Derek Waters had that whole, that.
Have you ever seen that viral local news clip from like 30 years ago? This was a big thing when I was in college, and it was on like, the YouTube predecessors like E-Bombs World.
Oh my God, E-Bombs World.
There was a guy who was on a local news interview where he's at the desk with the anchor, like they have him seated right there next to them, and he's super nervous being on camera, and he keeps talking really slowly, and then he just loses it and vomits all over the desk. And they're like, and he just keeps his head down in shame, and he just goes, I'm so sorry, and they just cut away. That was we had
a president that threw up on a dignitary. It's like that was what we did in the 90s. Bash. I guess it was early 2000s.
I have told you that I get migraines,
Yes.
and my migraine's very bad, and I vomit a lot when I get them. And I often don't want to miss work meetings because I don't want to feel like I'm behind. So if I ever have a migraine on a work day, I just turn my camera off and I sit in the bathroom and vomit while still in the meeting.
I think you should keep the camera off but microphone on,
so everyone can hear it. Yeah. A lot of
are you
vomit
okay?
lately.
Yes.
I'm getting surgery to attempt to get rid of the migraines in 2 weeks.
What is that surgery? Because I'm
brain
sure
surgery?
lobotomy.
They are cutting my nerves.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hopefully
Is it like
that
back of the
Bond
head?
that has no pain.
Is it
back
neck
and front of the
muscles?
head. Back
Okay.
and front of the head. So I had to have like a whole bunch of scans and shit. And I'm having my forehead cut open basically. I'll have, like, a
Something's
little
really
hair right
wrong
here.
with your brain has no sense of pain, right? There's no pain receptors in your brain.
What
Except
causes
for a sad
headaches in
song.
general?
Typically, it's dehydration. That's mine.
It's
because-
But then
neck
what is-
strain as
what-
well. It's often your
Where is
muscles.
the
isn't it?
pain then?
I would think it would be
Your head?
yeah, not actually in your head, but it's caused by dehydration. But there is a swelling that's happening in your brain. But that's why I was just listening to a podcast about this, where they can, and you see this in what was it, Red Dragon, where he like cut his head open, and was just like cooking his brain right in front of him. Your pain has no receptors, so you can actually just like, if you watch Severance, did the same thing, where this went right in the back of your head once you drilled. What?
Sorry, I thought you were going to spoil Severance. I've still
No, I'm only like 4 episodes in.
Oh, it's so good.
Does your
I
brain
wanna
have
watch it all.
nerves?
I don't know. I'm not a
Your brain is
scientist.
entirely
It is
made of
nerves.
nerves. Yeah, it's entirely made of nerves. That's its
It
whole
is
job.
just one giant...
It's an organ.
Yeah.
Does brain have nerves?
Does brain
I
have
think
nerve?
it is. It has no
Pain receptors.
nociceptors, the nerves that detect damage or threat of damage.
That seems very anti or counterintuitive to evolution.
This is led
Well,
to
that's kind of the point of the
brain
skull, isn't it?
feels no pain.
That's why there's a skull. Otherwise, we'd just be walking around floating brains.
Well,
Maybe we are.
the pain receptors on your head, if anything gets past them, it's kind of a done deal at that point anyway.
Austin, can you do me a favor?
That's true.
Can you push your glasses back? There we go.
I like that better. I'm gonna give you the reading glasses treatment.
Does the brain contain nerves? Cranial nerves. There are 12 pairs of nerves that originate from the brain itself. These nerves are responsible for very specific activities and are named and numbered as follows. Olfactory, whatever. Smell. So obviously the nerves in your brain are very important to your entire existence. They just can't feel pain.
Most
they're
headaches
able
are
to
muscle
do
strain,
brain
right? Most
Are they?
like normal headaches are often caused by like your neck muscles kind of tensing against stuff. That's what I've heard.
You know what's funny is related to that. I was
Your
reading.
muscles attach up there.
Can
That's
be
why you
poor
feel it.
exercise. Can also be, poor diet and lack of exercise can also cause headaches somehow.
You know how when you drink something really cold and you get
Brain
cold
freeze.
headache? Yeah, that.
Cold headache? Who calls it cold headache? It's a brain
That's what
freeze.
it was always called when I was growing up.
No,
What? It's a
Austin,
brain freeze.
nobody's ever said that.
Show of hands. Brain freeze.
I've also heard it as brain
Even
freeze.
the British guy.
Nobody's
Maybe
ever called it a
yeah.
cold
The
headache.
weird for everything.
we heard word of it in the UK. Yeah.
What the hell are they doing in Colorado? Cold headache?
Nobody's
I
ever
have a
called it
cold
that.
headache.
It's a cold headache. But that either way, brain freeze. Sorry to offend your Texas sensibilities.
Yeah.
I was recently Googling this because I had this kind of thing kicking around in the back of my head that scientists still don't fully understand what's going on there when you experience that. It's one of those phenomena that's like there's prevailing guesses, but they're not 100% confident in what's actually going on when that happens. Which anytime you come across a thing like that, I always find interesting.
Wow.
This
like
idea
bees,
that
right? They don't understand how bees exist. That
What?
according to our
they're aliens. We have no DNA in common.
We're
with
heading
them.
into a solid episode here.
Hell
Science
yeah,
doesn't
let's
know
go.
why bees
Wait,
exist.
what?
Is that-
Yes.
Bees exist because they're necessary for the
Presumably
propagation of
because like
species.
a mummy bee and a daddy bee fell in love. That would be my assumption
that?
where most bees come from.
More like a bunch of daddy
A
bees
bunch of
worship the
daddy
mummy
bees and
bee.
one mummy bee. Yeah.
supposedly,
Yeah.
according to physics, bees should not be able to fly.
Because their
They don't
body,
understand how bees fly. Yes, their body mass versus wingspan versus, I guess, muscles that would support wings scientifically don't add up.
You're just
Apparently,
fucking
I'm
broed out.
not confident in the source.
Anytime an article says this violates physics, my skepticism goes into overdrive.
Can that be a quote on our next
I
trivia?
think scientists need to mind their own
Violate-
business. Why are you bothering
I'll guess
bees?
that it was Mike.
Physics. Do bees violate physics? Let's find out.
All this podcast has become is Alanah Googling shit.
Bees are
I've
against
always wanted
God's
to be
law, that's
Oracle.
why- Yeah.
Wait, which Oracle?
The Batman article.
Batman one? Okay.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about Gotham Knights?
I haven't
Look
watched
good.
it yet. I will right after this. I haven't watched
fun.
it yet. But we can. What would you like to
Are
talk
you in
about?
that one, Troy? Or
I'm not. But I mean, this is the long-awaited,
knights.
like
He's
Warner
all-
Brothers Montreal.
he's Gotham, the city. Yeah.
I'm playing Gotham.
You're playing Gotham.
It's gonna be great.
Gotham himself.
You're saying about Montreal. You're saying about the Montreal city.
No, I mean, because think about this. Those guys have been a bit, quiet for some time.
Cooking up this, presumably.
Well, but it's gone through multiple iterations, right? I mean, the team has changed. There's been, which is often the case. You ship a game and people go, or they get promoted, or they leave, or they start new studios, or whatever. But it just for that studio to still retain something within that license, which I guess I don't know how that license would work. Maybe Mike, you know this, because there's Batman, and then there's all the derivative stuff from that, right? So that would
Isn't
be
it all
just
Warner Brothers? Don't
Yeah,
they?
I mean, it is WB Montreal, but it's also interesting that,
So they own it's their IP, basically.
yeah, but Gotham Knights also currently exists in 3 separate formats with that exact same titling, and they are
There's
not canon
comics.
to each other. Comics, the CW show, and the game, and
okay.
they are not actually overlapping at all.
Well, we're in the era of the multiverse now, so none of that matters. But that was always
Yeah,
the thing. That was always the thing that was really impressive about Arkham Asylum, was that they intentionally just didn't attach it to any existing canon, but cast actors from different versions and had
yeah.
fun
But I
with
mean, the
it.
first one did, right? The first one was a little bit more true to the graphic novel.
Yeah,
I
A
thought it
far
was-
more
oh, was
expanded
it?
version
Okay.
of it.
I mean, not
then
there is
Arkham
no
City was
version of
like
Arkham
mush.
like that exists, but like it did very
It
much
drew
root
from
itself in
it.
that lore
Yeah.
very strongly.
Yeah, and there were definite key moments where they were like, "Hey, we have to have the whole thing where he smashes his hand in the glass." And like,
But think about the era. Like, think about like that could very easily have been like a Nolan movie universe tie-in game, and it would have come out and been one game, and we'd never have seen any more. But because they
don't
distanced it, they have so much more longevity, right?
Yeah.
With their own
I don't think they're
franchise.
doing tie-ins anymore. I don't see that happening. You know what I mean? Like Harry Potter is not Fantastic Beasts; it's Harry Potter.
Lego.
Right? So it's
Yeah,
You
you're right.
separate
It would
Warner
make
Brothers.
perfect sense to do that as Fantastic Beasts, but they're not.
But there,
Yeah.
there was no Matrix game, and clearly that could have been something that they did.
It's because the film people realize that we can expand their IP rather than just making a tie-in. Like there's a lot more respect in Hollywood now for game
Do
makers.
you?
Isn't that what's
I
going
would
on with
agree.
the Obi-Wan show? That like aren't the characters that they showed in the trailer originating from the Respawn game?
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Mandalorian
There's-
is full. Mandalorian's got like the droid from Jedi Fallen Order. It's got the those droid soldiers are from. I feel I'm getting this.
We talked about
this literally like last episode, right? With
because the Bill Burr episode, they reference a battle that was created for the Battlefront 2 game, and it was like I think the first time a live action show, a live action Star Wars thing had sort of blessed the canonic presence of something.
IP's everything now. IP's everything. So anyone who can generate IP is very valuable.
I have a question too. Do you think that it's also just out of a sheer necessity because the before you could pretty much put a game together in 6 to 9 months. You would crunch like crazy, but you could do it. And now, just given the demands of what it takes to make a AAA console title, you can't do a movie tie-in.
Arkham Asylum was 20 months to make, 40 people originally, but ended up with 60. Studio.
This is killing me because I literally have the book on the making of that game on my shelf.
They scaled up to 60? That's it?
I'd be grabbing it right now. Oh.
Yeah, it went 40 to 60
I was like,
2 years.
Where's the rest of you? I was like, no, we're just a small studio. I'm like,
yeah.
Such a good game.
You're a madman.
They're bigger now.
But, I mean,
they're bigger now. They've gotten bigger over the intervening time.
Sure, but I think they're still in the same building. Like it's not a huge studio.
It's a smartly scoped game. Like from other game developers look at Arkham Asylum and go, "You clever bastards!" Again, like it seems obvious now because it was so successful. But like doing a Batman game all in one location, all with very specifically similar kind of bad guys, like.
But that was
it's very
07?
clever.
08? No.
2007.
Yeah, 2007.
Oh no, it would have come out in 2008. I think it started development.
Yeah, I think it was 2008. So I mean, I just don't think that you can do. I don't think you have the runway.
Well, even GoldenEye was late. Like that was in the 90s, and GoldenEye was supposed to come out as a movie tie-in and was late.
Right.
They couldn't even deliver that on time, and I feel like, I mean, you're right that it's a shift that I've never even thought about, that we don't get that stuff anymore. But I also wonder if it originally came from movie execs thinking it would be beneficial, and then realizing that marketing doesn't actually work that way.
Games were a promotional item for a movie rather than an expansion and an extension of the franchise. Like, you know, the John
partly
Wick,
why they were always terrible.
Yeah,
they
weren't talking to each other either. Like
John Wick 3, I saw in the store the other day the DVD of John Wick 3, and on the back, on the making of features, they've got, you know, some promotional material for our game. And you would never have seen that. Like the idea of we're now, you know, they're kind of doing that kind of cross pollination.
Well, can we ask about the timing of that then, Mike? The timing of with John Wick specifically. Were there conversations, if you can talk about it, regarding like we want to come out around this movie, or was it just when it was done?
Well, we definitely like when we I'm trying to remember now. It's been a while. No, genuinely, when we started, obviously you try and schedule the game and work it out. But no, there was no. They were very much of the opinion of like make it good. Because that's the other thing is the people who are now running these kind of relationships. People at film studios who are making games, they played games as kids, so they remember all the crappy times. They got
playing now too.
And
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think they definitely there wasn't pressure to the release. The only kind of the movie stuff was just like, hey, we've got, you know, the third movie's coming out. You should probably tie some kind of promotion. We came out though. I think we came out a little bit after the movie. I don't think we weren't in the release window for the movie. We were kind of. I know, but you know, we tied. You know, our announcement was close to the movie and stuff. So there was some overlap there, but no, it wasn't. They are not. No one's seeing this stuff anymore as like, you know, John Wick 3 isn't going to do better because my video game came out. You know what I mean? Like it's not. It's not a promotional tool in that way. It's more.
No,
just
but it
like
might go the other way around, right? Like if the game is if the movie was a huge flop, the game probably would suffer some aftershock of that.
Possibly, yeah, that's reasonable. That's fair.
But I don't think it's really ever happened in the inverse. I remember we did.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I can't remember if Spy Hunter actually was ever a movie. Was that a movie with The Rock?
With The Rock?
That seems like a film that exists.
Or am I doing like some, because they were supposed to be.
Is Vin Diesel in that? I think Vin Diesel was attached at one point.
Do you want me to oracle
it was The Rock.
Can you give me your best Batman voice requesting this information, please?
I'm still on the bees thing.
Computer.
Where did the Googling
Find
the bees
movie starring The Rock, Spy Hunter.
Has science
I know
worked
that
out
we did the game.
IMDb only lists the games.
Yeah, the game.
Because I played the shit out of the Spy Hunter PS2 game. So much fun. But then there was also, we did Eon Flux, that was a movie tie-in, and they would not tell us what the plot was. They wouldn't tell us anything. So our story was so vastly different.
That was the era, right? There was all the Jurassic Park games that take the plot from the novel rather than the movie. So there's like a bunch of Jurassic Park games with scenes in them that are not in the film but were in the book because they were all based on the book. It's nowadays. No, I read the John Wick 3 script before they started shooting it. Like we had full access to that. I think there's just much more access now and much more understanding. You know, I met with like the filmmakers and stuff to kind of ask them questions about anything that was vague or whatever.
Cool.
Sat in on the edit. Like there's room for.
As I recall, they gave you firearms training.
I got to get
Mike's a badass.
I got
close quarters combat and come through. And
Chad showed me a bunch of ballistics YouTube videos. It was a journey. That project was an interesting project.
But the thing about Star Wars specifically, like if there are Jedi Fallen Order tie-ins to Obi-Wan or whatever, is that they're so involved from the jump in a way that I don't know that anyone else is, in part because of that Lucas like secrecy shit that they have going on. Like I have friends who've worked on Star Wars games, and it's like, we want to do this planet and we would like it to look like this, and then they submit it to somebody and somebody says no because this is like something in this thing that's not out yet, so you can't do that. Like everything goes so far up a chain that it seems like it would be a nightmare to write on one of those games. But it also means that they can comfortably have everything be part of the same cohesive universe, except for all the shit they throw out, I guess.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's and that's exciting. That's cool. That like
it's super cool.
Imagine if you were the concept artist who came up with that Fallen Order droid, and now you're seeing it in Mandalorian. I'd be over the moon with that. That's really cool.
Manny Hagopian was the one who like gave BD1, I think
BD1, that's one, right? Yeah.
His backstory, and now he's got like action figures and stuff, and that's so fucking cool.
I'd love that.
A buddy of mine is a VFX artist who was working at ILM on The Force Awakens and was told by I don't remember if this came directly from J.J. Abrams or was just kind of like through the pipeline, but he was basically told, here's a shot of a desert, put some wreckage in it. So he put the Star Destroyer stabbed down into the desert, which became the opening shot of the first trailer and arguably the most iconic image, I think, of the entire sequel trilogy. And he just was trying to make something that looked cool. And
I had to do the math on that. That sounded weird.
He was like, there's a whole novel. Like they hired an author to basically write a novel about that Star Destroyer's crash and final battle and blah. And he was like, how crazy that basically I designed a shot and just basically tried to make it look good and honor the past Star Wars designs and blah blah blah. And then it has now spun off into a thing.
I have a question. Cool. First, I have a comment. I really want someone to just do a mashup of every time we all just converge onto the same on-ramp of conversation, how we all just like collide because we're all wanting to comment or something. We all just go, I just no, go ahead.
What an incredibly painful montage.
There's a few of them.
You could do a 3-hour supercut of us just going, sorry, you were saying? Sorry.
3 hours?
3 hours you could
So, 101 episodes. But to that point, in the age of like protecting artists and making sure that artists are recognized for their hard work and making sure that any derivative, content that is created off of someone's art that they make, even though it is just it's a work for hire gig, that he doesn't own the Star Destroyer. He doesn't own anything about that. It's just something, it's his design. Someone who writes a character for a game, let's say it's a mid-level writer at a mid-level studio that happens to do a Star Wars game that didn't necessarily perform that well. They had a contract for 10 months. They create a character, and then somebody played that game who's now a showrunner on the next big Star Wars show, takes that character, and he's now the new Mandalorian, or they're doing something with that character. We've seen that happen with Rosario Dawson. There's like so many characters. They're now just like flushing out this universe. It's already so packed with characters and story, but now it's a huge thing. And like you said, now you've got all sorts of things. You have a spin-off series that has merchandise, that also has a game tie and everything else. Is that writer entitled to something? Or, I'm not saying contractually, but this is it's a really interesting posit.
No, just props.
Yeah, like the most work for hire contracts, their whole point is to not have a elaborate, difficult paper trail as
Sure.
the IP expand. Like, music is one of the interesting quasi loopholes of a lot of that, because usually even if it's a work for hire, there are still potential pathways for a
Annuities
composer,
or royalties.
to earn royalties through what's called public performance. So like if
But
But
this
what?
is part of why I think credit's so important. Like, I think that you can work wherever and make the thing you made, and then IGN still uses my VO at Gamescom on their booth, and it's really weird to me that I don't work there anymore, but they still get to use my voice to advertise. Very strange, but they're allowed. That's content that I made for them while working there. But this is why I think credit, especially in games, is so important. I'm totally going to butcher the reporting of this, which makes me feel bad, but the woman who named Rivet in Ratchet and Clank, there was
The
recently,
GDC thing, right?
yeah, had a tweet thread where basically she was like very much erased from the conversation surrounding her input. I think she was a lead on that project, and they were like, yeah, so we all got together and we just kind of came up with Rivet, but it was fully her that came up with it. So she's
Are you
not
saying
entitled
a
to
room
any.
full of men with one
Yes.
woman in, then men all thought they came up with an idea that actually came
Yes.
from a woman? That's
However, I do
shocking.
think
I've
men in the games
never
industry
heard of that
also
before.
have their credit removed. It's but you're right.
that reminds me of the time that Mike brought up the Rivet
I
origin
did,
story.
yeah. It's a really interesting
Not
story.
again,
and I
son
think it's
of a
very
fucking
informative.
bitch. But it's that's the thing.
Mike,
that's like
you were saying?
we should,
Sorry,
we
yeah,
should-
sorry. I was saying Rivet.
You have been booted from the call.
Oh,
Now I'm here
I
by
think-
myself, talking to myself.
You can't expect
Talking to myself.
money
Who
for
thought
the
that?
thing that you contractually did for a company or compensation in that way, but I do think that we should be crediting people properly in video game credits, even if they leave before a project ships, and credit your peers for the stuff that they actually came up with. Otherwise, you just suck.
Is that just for a, hey, we want to give you credit, or is it so that it would trigger a payment? Because
I think it can trigger a payment insofar as it can help you get further
Get more
employment
jobs.
opportunities. Yeah.
Sure.
almost something
I'm
original.
I'm of the mind of that. I feel like I'm speaking purely for myself, obviously. I believe that every job is connected. So if I do a shit job on this job, I can't just walk away and go, oh well, because I will never know who else is working on that witnessed my poor performance or my poor attitude and goes, there's been a lot of people that are like, don't work with that guy because he's an asshole. And they were right. I was an asshole on that thing, and I needed to learn how to change my attitude and work better with people so that my performance in the game could have been fine, because there's 300 people that are making sure that it's not shit when they ship it out the door. That doesn't mean that what I put into it at the time was not worth it. There's a lot of people on the internet probably agree with me. But I definitely think that giving somebody credit for something that they did is fine. But most people that I've seen who are concerned with getting that credit operate from such a place of fear that are afraid that this is the only job they will ever get, and it better pay them everything that they can get because there's nothing that's coming. And for some people, that's very true.
Yeah.
they're separate
So I don't know if we can
conversations, though, right?
separate. Yeah, I just don't know if we can separate the, hey, we want to give you credit without someone going, well, what is that worth? And that's where I think it gets really cumbersome.
I think being as generous as possible with credit is in no way harmful to anyone. Like, there are people crediting our games who've done like 3 hours work, like, and good on them. Like,
Sure.
because they made the noodle. I don't think it necessarily implies that money needs to be involved. I don't think a credit implies.
Are you speaking from the position of the developer or position of the employee?
Well, I think well, always both, but I think if someone's credited on a commercial product, they should have been paid for it, but that's not what you mean, right? You mean being paid in addition, like royalties or.
Sure. I think that there's been a situation where someone did some work and then that work ended up getting used in some derivative content, and they were like, hey, I should get something for that.
There was literally a lawsuit to that exact end that was just recently officially quoting amicably resolved, but Marty O'Donnell, composer of the majority of the Halo series, sued Microsoft along with his co-writer and collaborator Mike Salvatore, because they basically stopped crediting them along the way, and like this Halo TV show is dropping using their music in the ads, and they're seeing nothing for it, seeing no credit, no mention, and their argument was, we signed a deal that gives us the right to this credit and royalties. They explicitly said, you owe us a lot of unpaid royalties because we signed that deal in a different era of the game industry than the kinds of terms that might be familiar now. And none of it was, I don't think the terms of their settlement were made public, but Marty did tweet, it's been resolved, which...
But that's the lesson.
Hopefully
right?
means they got some kind of nice payout, because they're literally they're using his material to advertise the IP, and the contract didn't prevent that. What were you saying, Mike?
I'm sorry, I interrupted
First
you.
at bat.
I think it was Alanah. No, I interrupted you. I was saying that that's the lesson for young folks entering the industry is contracts. Like ultimately, get a contract, get it in writing. If you're not comfortable with the wording of a contract, it's okay to kind of challenge it and be...
It's so hard to do that when you're desperate for work, though, too. So,
I know it is. I know it 100% is, but like,
may I speak to that?
There's no. Well, just let me finish this one thought.
Sure.
Like with the Marty O'Donnell thing, it's like there is no case, there is no back and forth or legal thing if there wasn't something in writing. The industry doesn't operate, unfortunately, on like fairness or the right thing. It ultimately comes down to what you have on paper, and I would always
I don't think that's unfortunate. I don't think that it's a failure of human goodwill that we formalize the process to make sure that if there's let's say there's an internal regime change at a studio and they're looking for ways to save money because the company is, on a downward spiral or something.
Yeah, no, I meant in the abstract sense of it's a shame that we need contracts in order for people to get what they're owed. That's
as opposed to just being
as
people
opposed to we're all just wonderful people, right? Like,
well, but, I mean, look, I still would challenge that from the standpoint, if only in my experience, I sign a lot of different types of contracts. Yeah. And my whole MO is I want to make a deal that feels good to whoever I'm making the deal with. Like, some people are all about, especially indies, like, yeah, let's work out a revenue share deal. Sure. Let's find some way to share in the action. Then there's a lot of kind of middle grounds. And then there's obviously the more, work for hire, just maximize your upfront pay because it's one and done. And all of those have acceptable variations. And I've signed variations on just about every type of contract out there. I can't remember the specifics. Like when a project comes up and I think, this probably could be modeled on the deal I did for X or Y. I have to go look up and even remember what I agreed to. And
being able to have a point of reference that you both can objectively look at. That's the point of the contract.
I'm not arguing against contracts, to be clear.
No, what Mike's saying is the most milquetoast take of, it would be nice if people were just good to each other.
Sure.
But we agree contracts are good.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just don't consider it... Like,
it doesn't mean it's evil.
I'm not.
I'm pushing. I come across the sentiment all the time from young composers that part of the value of contracts is because evil producers are always trying to fuck the talent. And I am like, I don't know who all these evil producers are, because while I've had the occasional points of disagreement or difficult projects, generally speaking, everybody's just trying to ship the thing and everyone has their point of reference on ways to get it over the finish line. And that does occasionally lead to, ruffled feathers, but like, it's a weird conspiracy theory of, the poor, delicate flower creative talent is always under the boot of the people who are, in charge. And I'm like, it's at minimum, it's more complicated than that. And that's
not the point I was making.
I know, but I'm just saying it sort of activates my...
It would be nice if both parties were just...
Fair point.
Mike's point is just everyone be nice. But I'm in agreement. I like a contract. I did have something, we'll get to what Troy was going to say. I did have something happen recently that was so fucked up that it was laughable. Somebody owed me my own content. I agreed to do something for them, and in exchange, they would give me the thing that I made on their premises or whatever. And so I was waiting for this thing for them to give me that they said they would give me. And then they were like, actually, here's a contract. We're only going to give it to you if you promote this thing for us. After all of these email threads, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Thankfully, they backed out, but I was like shocked by how absolutely terrible that was.
But that kind of speaks to my point where you said that's the lesson, right? Is that contracts are good. I feel that trying to go back and go, hey, this thing that I did is now a lot more successful than we thought it was going to be, so where's mine? As opposed to, okay, on the next one, I want to learn from that and apply that wisdom and go, hey, in the event that this thing is really successful, can we both agree that there's something else that we could do?
Yeah.
I'm fine for that. It's when we come back and go, wait a minute, I deserve more than that because this thing ended up becoming a success. I was like, yeah, but it could have also failed.
That happened with Squid Game, I believe. That the
I don't doubt
creator of
that one bit.
Squid Game didn't make very much money from that original series that Netflix did not even project to perform that well, but now we'll make money on the next thing, is the idea.
For sure. And hopefully they negotiate the same thing too. I do just very quickly want to speak to desperation. I do not, and I want to be very, very careful how I frame this. Because I do not believe that poverty is a state of mind. I believe that there are definite people that are in circumstances and situations, both internal and external, that put them in different financial positions, that put them in different circumstances that can make them or allow them to choose different things than I would have or whatever. So I'm not speaking specifically to that. What I am speaking specifically to are people who are starting off in an industry, no matter what level of talent or no matter what level of success they have, when desperation creeps in, that is 100%. Whenever I've been desperate, it is because I have been afraid and I've been forecasting falsely what I believe my future is going to be, as opposed to what my future is. Will this be my last job? I don't know, but the reality is that I do have a job right now. Will the next one follow? I don't know. But if I allow myself to become desperate about whether or not I will get another job or whether this job will pay me enough, I'm no longer in this job. And that is a poor performance to the people that have currently employed me. And that is when I have lost this job that I currently had for fear that it would be my last. If you're doing good, you find yourself in partnership with people that are equitable and amenable to you and your talent and your abilities, you will continue to work. Every year I start over from scratch. Austin's the same way. Mike is a self-made person, and so are you, Alanah. All of us have been, you know what I mean? Like all of us at one point got a leg up from somebody else.
I don't like the word self-made. I'm the product of several things that I'm not responsible for.
You put yourself in a position to be able to receive the good graces of even people that gave it to you, the charity of others or whatever.
Put me in several positions that gave me a good... Anyway, it's fine. We're not going to go
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
I work hard, but it's nothing is handed to me at the beginning of a year or even at the end of the year. It's like I have to go out and find it. I have to go out and either audition or build relationships or continue to do good work. Mm-hmm. But the second that I allow myself to feel desperate, I'm just at a deficit for the job that I'm currently doing. So I just want to encourage people.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, don't be, if you find yourself acting out of a place of fear. I don't think you're doing yourself a good service to the career that you're trying to build. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you'll make a bunch of stupid choices, really.
Yeah.
I have an example I can think of.
You are on record that you want to go into death kicking and screaming. So
yeah,
I guess that does scan.
Yeah.
When I was at IGN, I was not paid very well, and I remember. Again, contract, they could do whatever they wanted, but I was also on a visa, meaning that I couldn't quit lest I be deported. So they obviously knew that I didn't want that. I also just had no real bartering power for anything because visa. You own my right to be in the country. And I remember, I still don't think they have very good talent agreements, but there was a sponsored thing that I had to do on top of my regular job because the publisher asked for me specifically. And then I was told that IGN was paid like $120,000 for that. And I got none of that. And that always seemed very unfair to me from a media perspective of like, if somebody is requesting me specifically and I have to do it extra work hours on top of my job to be able to do the thing, and I don't get a cut of that, wasn't in my contract because that was just a product that IGN made and I was an IGN employee, but that always felt very unfair.
Exploitative.
Yeah. The second
That's a perfect example of Troy saying like, you roll into the next contract
knowing
the things that you
don't
learn.
get to do this.
Yeah.
Everyone on this call signed a terrible contract at some point. I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then the
Many
second one
terrible.
was when I first.
I think you and me, Austin, have signed a couple with each other. Haven't we?
You were always. I will not endorse that statement. I always felt well
Good.
cared for.
Always felt
That's it's in
well.
the contract that he has to say that. Though.
It's
That's
in the
the
contract.
problem.
He has to say that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When I first joined,
the self-deprecation clause.
when I first joined Rooster Teeth, they were able to sell merch with people's names, spaces, quotes, slogans, and not give those people money. But that changed while I was working there, which seemed like a very correct thing to do. Was that if any merch is sold with your face on it, or something you said on it, or a joke that you came up with, or whatever, then you would automatically get a cut of sales. But
That's good.
initially, they didn't do that because they still own all that content. They can do whatever they want with it. It's very weird.
One of the
And they
most
can get rid of it all.
One of the most eye-opening for me was there in this is probably true in a lot of freelance type contracts, but it's certainly relatively common in composer land, and I always recommend it to young composers is to have like termination language that is associated with the cancellation of a project. Like if you're fired, depending on the circumstances of your being fired, that usually has a tendency to basically give them the right to wash their hands of you. But if the thing is canceled or you're somehow let go through no breach, there's surprisingly little by default that tends to go into those. If you just ask like for 10 sample contracts. And I had it once where a project I was working on got canceled. There was no, what do we do if this thing gets killed from the producer's side? It just goes away. But you make time on your calendar, but the payments are often associated with milestones of development, which means now we fall short of that. So I guess I just am out of luck. So on the next contract, my agent and I were like, we're definitely going to go ahead and put in some cancellation language, including a fee associated with if they terminate the contract.
Yeah.
And the next thing that came up where we had that language in there, they hired me, and then before I could write one note, the publisher canceled the game, and I got paid for literally doing nothing. And I was like, that is the best defense of this contract language I've ever seen.
I've worked with somebody who got recast, and the publisher and may have just originated from the developer out of the good graces were like, "Hey, this isn't fair to you. It was our lack of ability to be able to we changed the character on you essentially, and so that it has nothing to do with you did." And they paid him out, and I would tag on to this: be wary of anyone who isn't willing to have a contract with you or speak to representation of you. If people are like, come on, let's just keep it friendly, we're like, we're keeping it friendly. And the friendly way to do this is for us to have a document that just points out if we ever get confused 5 years from now, what do? Just be wary of those people.
For an episode about credit, I need to give appropriate credit to Sam Maggs, who was the lead
Ratchet and
writer.
Clank one. Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that I actually properly give her credit. So, Sam tweeted saying, this is a fun piece that goes into detail about, she's linked an IGN article, about how we developed Rivet, though it's pretty upsetting and frankly offensive that they never once mentioned me, given I was lead writer and responsible for a ton of this development. And then she goes on to talk about how a GDC talk makes it sound like a bunch of the stuff sprung up out of nowhere, or a bunch of the stuff about Rivet sprung up out of nowhere. When she was one of 4 people there, and she was the one who said we can't call her Ratchet. She suggested Gadget and Rivet, etc., etc. And they basically just completely erased her from that conversation.
Do you think that part of that may...
Yeah.
Here's my attempt to charitably see how that may have happened. Just, I don't know. I don't know any of those people. I have no reason to doubt that it isn't just some, callous overlooking of a teammate. Mm-hmm. But out of curiosity, from your various perspectives, it would seem to me that a lot of developers work hard to feel like we're a unit, the team made this, as opposed to a kind of heterogeneous mixture of a lot of individuals. Like, other than maybe a leader, a figurehead who's like the top of the, like a Ted Price, like someone, or a Neil Druckmann, someone who's kind of the acting director of the overall operation. It would seem that there's a lot of emphasis on, the studio did this. And does that lead to a sense of kind of nameless we
Yeah.
did
I think
X.
there are
It fucking
numerous
sucks.
ways this could be done politely. Like numerous
Yeah.
ways that you could be, in interest of brevity, they're just like, and then it came together. Or what you're saying, which is making it like a team. But I don't
Like
think
as a
that's
conscious choice for studio culture or whatever.
potentially, but I don't think that's necessarily the right thing to do for a lead writer who came up with the name and then
Not,
left.
no, I'm not
But yes,
saying,
I
I'm
don't
not
think they
defending that. I'm
necessarily
just saying,
did
is
it
that
in
how
a
it could have
bad way.
gotten there?
I don't think they are inherently evil for
You got to
doing it
remember
that
as
way.
well. Well, you got to remember as well. A lot of that, the intentional kind of making it the team rather than the individual. That's often, it's the corporation is incentivized to make people think in
Often
that way.
comes from the publisher.
If you're a fan, anyone watching this is probably a fan of developer X. I won't use a name, but any given developer. Well, let's say Bithell Games. There you go. Then throw it on me. If you're a fan of Bithell Games, they're the people who made one of our older games like Volume. A lot of those people don't work with us anymore. They've moved on to other jobs. They're doing other things. It is in my best interest for you to be a fan of the company rather than those individuals, because you'd go over and follow those. So I am on some level incentivized to create that culture within my studio. And I think that happens, especially in AAA, quite a lot. People do tend to move on a lot from studios. I'm really trying to say a specific company, but the game development studio you love because they made a game you loved 10 years ago, less than 50% of those people are still there.
Ship of Theseus.
Hopefully. You know
Which
what I
is
mean?
the ship of Theseus. Exactly. Hopefully they've had careers, they're doing their own thing. That's a brilliant thing. But there is definitely the games industry. Well, first of all, the games industry tried to create rock stars by, promoting the names of auteurs in the AAA space.
They used to have band photos in marketing.
Cliffy B, all the photos of Cliff from 20 years ago are amazing.
EA used to literally create album covers of devs piled together.
But the problem was when they did that, those devs then they got power. Those individuals got power. They got to be able to negotiate the contracts. They were stars, and they were negotiating based on that. So now, we do have a culture where the average person on the street can maybe name the creative director of a AAA team, but they can't name individuals unless those people have, like yourself, Alanah, someone who's got a reputation outside of the company and builds it up externally. So I'm wary of the kind of the camaraderie of an anonymity kind of. I don't know. The games industry is terrible at basically erasing people who leave. That's something that we consistently as an industry do. In terms of credits, it happens all the time. If you're a AAA game developer and you leave a project before it ships, you might only make it into the special thanks section. Even if you've been there for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever. It happens all the time. It's horrible.
Journalist who writes 10 articles about crunch would much prefer articles about contract culture. And we're speaking about contracts, but I know people at AAA studios who are so terrified that they aren't going to be employed that they start sabotaging each other, or they don't get certain things that other actual employees get. Some of them get little holiday gift bags or whatever, and the contractors don't get anything. Just a lot of gross treatment things for so many very experienced positions that are only ever advertised as contract across the whole industry. I think it's that's a thing I wish that you'd write about.
I think we could agree then that, once again, fear produces bad decisions, right? So if I'm not saying that
capitalism creates bad decisions, but that's the difference. That's fine.
Sure, we could.
Oh man,
we could go as elevated as we wanted to, but I
don't think any of this. I don't think a game industry would exist outside of capitalism. I would just like to throw that out there.
I think humanity made
Where can I
off for
agree
quite a
with
few
that?
years before capitalism. I think
The games industry
but not
specifically is a tough
No, I'm
one.
saying the
we
games.
have computers, yeah.
If we're it is.
I mean,
it's
there are
it's
several
like-
collectives who make computer games, for example. So I don't know if that necessarily holds.
I feel like
Several
as we're
I'm
talking
not
about
one,
this,
by the way,
and-
to be clear. I'm a capitalist, so I'm massively hypocritical in this conversation.
I don't know.
finally it's
I
quoted.
think Austin might be right there. That's an interesting one.
You
I mean,
don't
to me,
think
it would
video
be-
games
it-
can exist without capitalism?
Not how they currently are, no.
worker co-ops are not incompatible with capitalism. There's no.
Well,
there's-
then it depends what you're defining as capitalism, because we're not talking about money. Money doesn't equal capitalism. You can have.
I'm just talking about non-centrally
trade without
planned
capitalism.
economies.
Right, okay.
I'm saying I don't see why video games would exist in a centrally planned economy, or if they did, it'd be like historically speaking, the comparisons would be like the Soviet car industry, which did not produce.
I was going to say, I think your point is a nuanced, interesting one, and I'm sure we can have a really good conversation. I just want to point out, because it's funny to me, that one of the most important and coolest games ever happened because of it happened in Soviet Russia, Tetris, right? So like,
it's true.
It's true, but notice what happened to its creator. Speaking of credit and unpaid royalties.
He's fine. He got everything he was owed. No, he didn't. No, he was treated absolutely terrible.
I love being the dumbest person on this podcast.
It's just that as soon as Mike said the word capitalism, I was like, is Austin going to be okay? And then we could not say anything. Yeah. It is what it is.
It's the dynamics of the show.
We are who we are.
But
as we were talking about this,
your point, which was fear is the mind killer, right?
I simply wanted to state that as we're kind of talking about this, I'm thinking about some of the studios that I work with, and I think Austin brings up a very valid point of, while I don't believe that most people are inherently mustache twirling evildoers that are just trying to crush people, therein lies the true danger, because people think that they're doing something that's really good that is, by arrow of omission, erasing people from history or overlooking people, because we're trying to promote a team culture. Isn't that a great thing to do? We do team building things. It's like, yes, but at the same time, you go too far to one extreme, and it's about finding the balance of that. And all of the studios, right? All of the studios that I'm working with, that I can think of right now at least, are avidly, ardently working to change their culture, because there is a shift that is happening in this industry that I feel is for the better. There's new blood that's coming in, and there's new awareness that's coming in. And it is something that is genuinely trying to, it's not about the tech and it's not about the hardware that's changing it. There's a culture shift that's happening inside of games right now, because I am seeing this industry become the tip of the spear and not the butt of the arrow for where entertainment is going. And that's exciting to me. I think that there's more people that are starting to experience stories and interactive experiences in this medium than there are in TV and film. Or at least that's becoming, people are starting to adapt more, and it's becoming more credible and more legitimate. And I think that game studios are stepping into that space, and they're doing it well. But I do believe that unless they have these conversations and they think about, hey, we should probably point out the fact that X employee is the one that actually said that, would you do me a favor, just stand up? We just want everyone to recognize this person, as opposed to, hey guys, we all do this just as a team. I think that is a worthy endeavor, and there should be some awareness about that. But it doesn't mean that it's bad.
It's an interesting point. I do have to ask, is the back of an arrow called the butt? Because that's amazing.
I made that up on the fly. I have no idea. Please don't Google.
I hope it is. I want it to be. I want it to be. I'm going to look that up. Because the
spear,
the notch.
I don't think so.
Isn't the notch of the arrow?
Let's just not Google it. Let's just all trust that it's called
let's
the
just
butt.
assume.
Is it knock?
It's spelled
knocking.
No. It's not called the knock
of the arrow.
Canonically, for the purposes of this show, it is called the butt of an arrow.
Yeah, thank you.
And I will ban anyone in the comments.
I don't get credit for that. I'm coming after all you motherfuckers.
Something that you said a second ago, Mike, keeps kicking around in my head about the sort of corporate incentive to not credit people. And I find myself thinking there is an interesting potential counter argument to that, because I found myself thinking about how the film industry, when you hang out with real movie buffs and they're like, oh, I can name every production designer that Spielberg's worked with, every cinematographer, every editor, every costume designer. They know them. They know who they are. They know their prior credits. They know the Spielberg collaborations and the non-Spielberg collaborations.
Like
all
the
that kind of
61
thing.
Mets, they can claim. They can knock them off.
Totally, and I love what that to me translates to is when I look at a Steven Spielberg film, I don't think to myself, he singularly made this film.
No,
obviously, it's more like he is a magnet to top talent. Mm-hmm. And so when you look over his body of work, it's like a who's who of every top department head and below, seemingly throughout the whole of cinema.
Yeah.
And so that becomes the cool branding for him. It's not, oh, you might not like my next film because we're no longer working with this editor, they've retired or whatever.
Sure.
It's like, that we get the best possible people.
I don't think most people think that way.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not. And maybe that's the difference between being a film buff or a game buff or whatever versus a casual observer. But
you are right that is something that happens. Like we've just done a bunch of hiring, and we've genuinely hired people who've come to us because they want to work with us because they like our game. So we're seeing that happen in real time, like for our company, that we're able to hire, frankly, above our pay grade.
And if someone really noteworthy.
Yeah,
and if someone really noteworthy comes along and then you do the thing and then they move on, you can lay claim to having collaborated with this superstar, which is a boon to you. They get to take credit for their contribution to the game. It's a boon for them. It seems like
I think the fundamental
nothing is
difference-
lost in hiding their credit.
The difference. Oh, so the only thing. Oh,
Which I know you wouldn't do. I'm just exploring.
No. But in terms of, I think the only major difference is in the games industry. You're talking about a crew of hundreds of people, right? Like, and I do agree that I think any studio who treats. Sorry, I think any studio that treats.
Uber.
It is Carrie, so I'm.
It's what happens when he's
Answer
not
the
at
phone.
midnight or whatever, and we realize
When
how
it's a
In the
regular
middle
work
of a
hours.
deeply geopolitical, philosophical conversation.
I'm explaining socialism to the crew. No,
I'm sorry, Austin. What did you think you were drinking just then that forced you to look into the cup? I don't know anyone that's ever like, what the fuck is this?
Because
Just
this is my
you do it.
first time using one of these Ember.
Oh, that's so good.
And it has
is that?
it's
Is that
a
the one
chart.
that's
It's
the
heated.
USB?
It'll keep your shit warm.
I have an app now for my phone. It
Who are you
Bluetooth sets the
people that
temperature.
are taking that long to drink a drink?
Drink it.
I drink very
This was given to
slowly.
me as a gift
Go to
by
Italy and drink a coffee. They're like, what are you sitting down for? Drink it and go. It's like,
Yeah, like I've never had a coffee. That
It's
lasted
tea
more than 5
that
minutes.
I drink very slowly. Some of us have tummy problems when we drink milk fast.
I should check. My
Don't
stomach
drink
privilege,
milk.
I apologize,
But I
I'm
love
sorry.
coffee.
well, then do a non-dairy cream or oat
Let
milk.
me
Take
answer
that.
your question, goddammit. The reason
Yeah.
I looked down is because this has like a Teflon lining or something inside, and I looked and it looked
Hopefully it's not
dry
Teflon.
as though I don't think it is, but it looked like there was never any liquid in here, and it caught my eye because I was like, holy shit, it's so
You look like you were looking into the suitcase in Pulp Fiction is what you looked like. You were like, my
the end of
God.
7.
It's the glowing
What's in the
light.
box?
I will say, if you drink an Ember mug too slowly when you have your tea, it will burn the milk and you'll get little crusty burnt milk
Really selling it.
bits.
This episode brought to you by...
This was the maiden voyage of this. The lovely Tina Guo gave me this when we
They're
were
great.
recording the anniversary Journey album. She showed up to Capitol with this Ember mug, and I was like, And I realized it's been sitting here, and I didn't have an outlet back there, and so I neglected it. And then this morning I thought, trying it out.
This is how it works with giving gifts to Austin. They'll sit until absolutely necessary. It's like, that's been there for a year and a half. I should
Try
probably...
it out.
How's
There's
the
a
toilet
toilet
seat
seat.
working out?
Yeah.
I was going to say the
great.
toilet seat.
The toilet seat
floor.
went into the dumpster, thank you very much, because the entire bathroom was remodeled.
What's a seed? I planted a seed. The seed grew into a tree. That's how it works.
It's true, yeah.
It
it's
grew into
true.
a whole bathroom.
I'd be nowhere without Troy's weird-shaped toilet seat that was like
credit
hospital-grade
Troy,
fluffiness.
Do you credit Troy for the bathroom? Do you point
Yeah,
it
give me
out
the credit,
so listeners,
motherfucker.
Like, yeah.
That's true. I should have a little plaque like the baker
I just want a picture of myself
room.
that just looks at someone at eye level when they're seated and go, you're welcome.
If it helps, the closet door right next to the bathroom has a decal on it, courtesy of On Hill, that says Booker DeWitt Detective Agency. So you are quasi-credited.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I got to go.
We all gotta go.
I can do a plug.
It feels
When is
like one
this
of those
coming out?
episodes where we need to have a 10-minute conversation.
This will come out on Friday.
It's coming out on
Who
Friday.
knows?
All right. Well, then it's not going to be out yet.
I didn't get to drop my trivia. I'm going to do it really fast. I'm
Go.
inserting this. Do you know what year the company Nintendo was founded?
79.
Oh no, it's a card game company, so it's like the lost.
Old as fuck.
It was the
Yeah.
end of the 1800s.
Yeah,
Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Blew my
They make
mind.
playing cards, yeah.
I never knew that. Yeah, and they were a playing cards company, and they had like no corporate vision, because over the course I was reading this article and it was saying they also tried making instant rice. They were a taxi service. They tried making ballpoint pens. They were basically just wandering, going, "We'll just put our name on whatever."
None of it's working.
I
Yeah,
want a
I had
Nintendo
no
ballpoint
idea.
pen and instant rice.
September 23rd, 1889 was when Nintendo was founded.
That's
That
too old.
broke my brain when I read that the other day.
Couldn't sign up to a website with that birthday, could you?
No, nothing that old should be allowed to exist.
All right, forgive me. I know you're bailing.
I'm bailing. I'll
what are
save
you
my
plugging,
announcement for
Troy?
next week.
No,
I'll do
do
it for
it.
next week
Do it.
because it'll drop Friday. It'll drop
Okay.
Friday the 20th. So there.
Wait, what?
Expect
I'll do
Detroit
it.
News
Yeah,
on
okay, that
20th
makes
of,
sense.
May.
Yeah. So I'll save it for
All
next
right.
week. It's gonna be awesome.
Talking next
See
time.
you all next week.
Bye.
Oh my god, I didn't intro the show. Hi everyone, it's Alanah, writer, Troy Baker, actor, Austin Wintory, composer. I'm too stressed out. Mike Bithell, director. Okay, bye.